Hello, the new Nigerian audience. Welcome to our podcast. It's a new series. Honored to introduce to you Joe Hendricks, the founder of Travel Without Plastics. For those of you who are not aware, TNN tend to go towards green energy. We've been trying a long time to collaborate with Joe regarding harnessing the power of not using plastic. So, in short, what we'll do, we'll let Jo introduce herself. We'll let her tell you a bit about her childhood, where she was born, how she grew up, and we'll go from there. So, Jo, it's a pleasure to have you on. If you please introduce yourself to the new Nigerian audience, a bit about you, your childhood, how you grew up until right now. Thank you.
Gosh, you might have to stop me, David, if I start rambling about all of my history. But firstly, thank you very much for asking me to join you. It's a real pleasure and really great to know that people will be listening in. So, gosh, I was born in the UK in Liverpool. A long time ago now, so I'm 48, so yeah, 5 decades ago almost, and quite a normal upbringing really, with in a UK family, mum, dad, 2 kids together, went to school, had a very big interest in Spanish and French and traveling. I've always been interested in traveling, and from a very young age I knew that I wanted to work somehow in the travel industry. And when I would see the overseas teams for the British travel operators, and learn what the people did, meeting people at the airport, making sure they had a great stay in the hotel, taking them out on excursions. From the age of about 12, I knew that I wanted to do that. And so I worked towards that and learned Spanish specifically because I knew I wanted to be in Spain. So moving forward, quite a few years, fast forwarding, therefore, it was 1997. I think I was 24, if my maths works out, or 23, when I actually got the opportunity to become a holiday rep for the first time. And it was amazing. I did it as a career break. I thought, in case I don't like it, or in case I want to come back to the UK, I'll take a 12-month break from my full-time job, which was actually an emergency room operator with Merseyside Police. But I really enjoyed it so much that I decided that I would go back for a second year to rep a different country, a different place. And it was that, I think, that got me addicted to it almost, that every 6 months you could change the destination where you worked. You'd meet new people, you'd understand new cultures, taste new food. And it was just far too good to give up this opportunity to travel. But I guess with the support of a travel company, so you knew that you always had somewhere to stay, you had a salary that came in, and you made so many great friends. It was fantastic. But over the course of that time, as I kind of moved up the ranks, if you like, within the tour operator, I took an administrator's role and worked predominantly from the office. And then I took a health and safety role, which was really interesting because that took me out into hotels, predominantly in the Canary Islands, which is where I'm based now, helping them to meet the standards required from British tour operators in terms of balcony safety, swimming pool safety, food hygiene, all those sorts of things. And I did that for 10 years. Yeah, that was really, really interesting, really great insight into hotels and their operations. And from there, I moved into a sustainability role that was created by the Thomas Cook Group when it became a corporate after it had merged with My Travel. This is all British outbound tour operators, for those that may not know. And once they'd had that sustainability department role, it's something I've been interested in a long time, because by now I'd been overseas for a long time, and I could see the positive impacts of tourism, but I could also see the negative impacts, and I wanted to be able to use my job to do something to turn that around and for tourism to be more positive. And so I was lucky enough to get the role of Sustainable Destinations Manager. And that meant that I travelled even more extensively to lots of different destinations, looking at how the Thomas Cook programme was run, what kind of benefits were we creating for the people that lived in those destinations, and what were we doing in terms of environmental impact, and then working on solutions with various different collaborative partners to increase our positive impact, really. And I left them in 2014 to follow my own path, specifically with this waste reduction focus that I've got now, because since 2011 I've worked in plastic reduction in hotels, and it just became too much when I traveled to the United States for a work trip, and everywhere I went I had to eat from single-use plastic or styrofoam bowls, and with single-use plastic cutlery and styrofoam coffee cups, and I thought, oh, there's just got to be a better way. We can't be creating so much waste in this industry that I really love. And so that became my full focus then, and Travel Without Plastic as it is today started out in 2017, where I just thought I need to take everything I've learned over the years from the health and safety background, quality assurance background, the operations, and then bring that sustainability piece in so that I can offer people practical, affordable advice so that they know how to reduce single-use plastic in their business. So that's probably a whirlwind of it all to bring you up to date to where we are today.
It's quite interesting. We enjoy your voice, and we are very grateful for. I beg your pardon. Let me turn this down. We're grateful for your experience. I need to take you back. I need to take you back to childhood, growing up in Liverpool. Tell us a bit more about that. It must have been in the 70s, the mid 70s. What was life like in the UK? What was the awareness of trying to save the environment? When did you become aware after that you would play a key role in trying to reduce plastic in the travel industry?
I think, well, to answer your first question, growing up in Liverpool was great. It's just got such a great cultural vibe, you know, and it's a melting pot of different people, different cultures, of people from all over the world converge in Liverpool. And it just always feels like a very friendly place. It's had its ups and downs, as any big city does. But generally, I just find it a place where you can go, and anybody that you can speak to, you can have a great time, a good laugh, and they're really down to earth, nice people. And I had a great set of friends there that I'm still in touch with now and see regularly whenever I go back home, which isn't as much as I would like to. But yeah, it's great to still keep in touch with everybody there and see how much the city's transformed as well. And, you know, when it was awarded Capital of Culture, I think it was back in 2008, or I might have my dates wrong, but that was really great to see that and know that somehow it's linked to all of us, and we've got a great history there. I don't think, you know, while I was growing up, there wasn't there wasn't a massive awareness of environmental impacts. But if you think about it, I remember my nan would go to the shop, and she would go to a variety of shops because she wouldn't go to a major supermarket. She would walk there. She'd take one of those shopping trolleys on wheels, and you never saw a plastic bag. It was everything went into that shopping trolley and went home, and she would shop at a different shop to get the meat, the fish, the vegetables, the bread, the milk, and yeah, we never had anything that was throwaway. So actually, when you look back, it's only really 2 generations, isn't it, that you have to go back and you think, gosh, we did things a lot more sustainably then. The way that we consumed, you didn't have a coffee on the way to work, did you? On the train, you waited till you got to the office and you made your coffee in the office in a ceramic cup, and you maybe had a bit of time chatting to your office colleagues and things before you started work. So there wasn't that takeaway convenience culture that we just can't seem to live without now. And I think that's the biggest difference that I can see from my childhood and growing up to today. When I look at my sister's children growing up, the difference in how we move around, how we travel, and the products that we use to help us do that more efficiently, which ultimately end up creating a lot of waste. But I think it was really when I took on that sustainability role that it started to become obvious to me that I could use what I'd learned in the past years in the travel industry and actually think, do you know what, I can make this easy for people. I can give them really good advice that's not overly expensive. I can help them to find alternatives. I can help them to work through new processes. And I think it was around that time, so about 2007, 2008, when I realized just how much I liked helping people to make changes. And I think that's where it's come from. And then just this obsession with constantly seeing plastic everywhere when you travel, because it's very visual. I mean, the travel industry and, you know, generally environmentally in the world, we've got lots of other issues we need to tackle. But I think plastic captures people's attention because it is so visible. We can see the impact of it. We see it all the time on the news. You can see it in your own street many times, depending on where you live. And, you know, depending on what country you're in, those impacts are different. For, you know, when we lived in the UK, and for you as living in the UK, we don't really see that much waste on the street. We've got a really good waste infrastructure. But if we travel to other destinations, it's quite a shock to see so much, or to see people openly burning plastic, or, you know, outside of their front doors because there's no other way to get rid of the waste. And I think it's those things that make me think we can't carry on like this. We have got to be able to do something, because the impacts on people's health, not just the environmental impacts, are also really important. So that kind of drives me every day to keep going. And it drives a lot of people that I work and collaborate with now, which is great.
Excellent, Joe. In 2017, Joe, when you just got into when you set out, I think you said you set out on your own in 2014, but you really started concentrating on getting rid of plastic in 2017. I remember seeing your initial posts on Facebook, and I said to myself, this is something Nigeria could do with. I've been trying seriously to bring the attention of authorities that I have contact with, to bring their attention to travel with plastic. So tell us a bit about your company. Tell us a bit about Travel with Plastic, how you set up, the impact you're having at the moment, how people can engage with you, because our audience, believe it or not, we'll still have these people in authority in Nigeria listening in, and they might just key into the great ideas that you espouse today.
Oh, that would be great. I think the more people that are engaged in this, the better, and the more opportunity we've got to find solutions to the problem quickly. So as you said there, you would have seen some of my first posts that I put onto Facebook, because it was that time in 2017 when I just thought, I've got to do something about this now. And I had half an hour before I had to leave the hotel I was in to go to these meetings that I would be in all day. And I thought, what can I do? I need to do something because I'm so motivated for change. So I set up this Facebook page and just called it Travel Without Plastic, put a couple of posts on, told people what I was going to do, ran out the door, and didn't really look at it again until I got back to the room later, at which point it had quite a lot of followers, and everybody saying, oh, this is such a good idea. You know, how have people never thought of this before? And then a friend who worked at a holiday company, and they had their own hotels within that company, asked if I would put a little toolkit together for them. And she'd worked with me before, so she knew my background and knew that I would be able to create something that was really valuable. So we created that became, I guess, the Let's Reduce single-use toolkit. So we created a personalized one for them. But it moved on then into me wanting to spend the time to put something generic together. So when I say generic, it means there's a lot of material in there. There's a lot of advice and recommendations, but they're done in a kind of global setting, if you like. And that it almost became our business card, I guess. When people downloaded the guide and the tools that went with it, they understood straight away that we knew what we were talking about. We could really help. Didn't cost a lot to download the toolkit. It's only like 40 euros, 49 euros on the website. But we wanted people to make a payment for it rather than do it free, because we find that if somebody's paid for something, they're more likely to actually use the material because they think, I've spent money on this, we're going to go through it and make it work. And so that led then to people coming back to us and saying, we really love what's in the toolkit, but we would love it to be changed a little bit so that it maps better to our destination. So for instance, we worked with the Portuguese Tourist Board to adapt the toolkit and the guidance documents to the Portuguese context. So we made sure that everything that we talked about was relevant to the upcoming legislation in Europe, for instance, and we referenced any particular possibilities and opportunities in Portugal, made sure that all of the images were related to Portugal, and so that anybody reading it who was from Portugal felt that they could identify with it and they could take those recommendations on themselves. So that proved really interesting. And we also do we were doing a huge amount of in-person workshops at the time before COVID. So we would go with different hotel groups would ask us to come and get their staff engaged because they wanted to do things. They really, really wanted to change, but the staff were finding it hard to change habits of a lifetime, to understand why they would need to make these changes or how to ensure that guests didn't complain and those sorts of things. So we created a series of capacity building workshops, and we offered those in different parts of the world. And when COVID hit, we took those online. So it became very much webinar focused rather than in-person focused. And that was great and it worked well, but you don't get the same kind of engagement from the staff when you do it online. But we've, over the course now of what's it been, 5 years, we've trained, probably about 2,000 colleagues in the travel industry, in hotels, on different ways of making changes. We've worked with hotel companies that are, from huge organizations like IHG that we work with at the minute, to smaller groups of hotels that have maybe got 10 or 12 in their property, and we create something bespoke for them. So there's lots of different ways we work. I think the key is being really flexible and understanding where those businesses are, what the issues are for them specifically, so that we can create with them a series of actions and opportunities that they can take forward with their own staff. So yeah, that works really well. And that's something that we're able to do from a distance. So I do most of our work from home, to be honest, although now that the world's opening up and we can travel a bit, it's good to be able to see places in real life, because it really gives you a feeling, that you can come back and say, oh, I might have suggested this, but now that I've seen the destination or where the hotels are or the waste infrastructure, I probably wouldn't make that suggestion. I'd do it differently. So there's a lot that you get from being able to travel to the place and do it. But there's so many opportunities out there. I think it's just making them relevant to the destination that needs the help.
Absolutely. Can you please talk on the impact of plastic, not only on the environment, but you mentioned health. Can you expand on that so the audience will understand the urgency and the need to start living without plastic? I know in the UK, they are making progress with cutting plastic out of our daily usage. I'm sure with your work with the Portuguese Tourism Board, I'm sure that you've made an impact there as well, with raising the awareness of not using plastic. But what are the consequences of us having so much plastic in the world? not just to the environment, but also to our health?
I think it's an interesting question, isn't it? And it's only quite recently that people have been asking this question because it's always been this focus on the environment. And I did a webinar a couple of weeks ago now, and I think, like you said, in the UK, the awareness is there and people are starting to do things about it. But I think the awareness is still around the environment and people are doing it for that. But it wasn't that long ago, I think only a couple of years, that some studies came out that had found so many microplastics in particles in the air that we breathe in. So
Wow.
I think they'd said it was something like between 2,000 and 7,000 plastic particles that a family could be breathing in their own house every day. And you think, wow, okay, what's the impact of that? I mean, you can't see them. They're so small, you can't see them. So we almost don't realize it's happening. And then on top of that, you've got the research now that's, it's shown for some time there are microplastics in water. We know there are microplastics being found in many of the fish species that people eat. So that's obviously problematic. I don't think we really understand the impacts to us yet because we haven't really studied it for long enough. But I think when that the Australian research came out to say that between eating, drinking, and breathing in microplastic particles, we were all consuming something like the size of a credit card a week on
Oh my
average. It'd be
goodness.
like putting a credit card on your plate and thinking, I'll eat one of those every week, that amount of plastic. Now, that can't be good. So even if we don't fully understand the impacts to our health, I just think we know that that isn't right. And you wouldn't eat that plastic if it was put on a plate in front of you. So I think people are starting to become more aware. And it was only a few weeks ago, wasn't it? They found microplastics in human blood. So we know it's circulating around our bodies. And I was thinking about this and I thought, right, I'm 48 now. Probably for about half of my life, there won't have been as many microplastics to ingest or to take in or to, be worrying about, because it's really become more prevalent, I think, in the last 20 years or so. But you think about the children that are born today, they're going to be ingesting microplastics from the day that they are born. And you just think, right, there's got to be something that we can do about this because we can't know about this and not tackle it. And then I think from some work that I did in the Gambia together with a great organization called WasteAid, and that was the first time when I actually realized the impact of pollution, air pollution from burning and the open burning of plastic and lots of other waste actually that was mixed in. But because of this lack of infrastructure, there was a lot of illegal dump sites, and one of the only ways to really control them and to stop them from becoming full of rodents and was to burn the rubbish. But these sites, that acrid smoke, the smell of it is dreadful if you're actually near to one. The people that are working on these dump sites or living near them, in one place there's even a school right next to one. I don't know what came first, the school or the dump site, but whatever was there first, the second thing should never have been built. And you just think, right, there are other impacts that perhaps us here in Europe don't necessarily take into consideration. But a lot of the time, it's our plastic from Europe that is being sent to countries with no infrastructure for them to deal with it. And their only way then, because we send so much rubbish plastic that has no value and can't be recycled, their only way to deal with it is to burn it. So we have got a responsibility in that way, because it's like us saying, okay, you take all of our waste, then you breathe in all this toxic smoke from burning it, you deal with it in your waterways. But it clogs up water systems as well. So that can be really problematic in destinations where there's a lot of, if there's a rainy season, for instance, and when drains can't function properly and they overflow, then of course all of the other toxins and bacteria that are in those waters are able to kind of disperse, through the environment, and that impacts on people as well. So it's not as straightforward as we might think it is when we just think about these environmental impacts, and the health impacts are are really quite important. I also saw, and I know I'm going on a lot here, I always do when I get interviewed about things, but I saw some research, I think it was in the States, and they said that plastic litter on the roads has an impact just on people's general mental health. So it makes them really depressed to live in areas that are full of waste and litter, not all of which is plastic, obviously. So even down to that level of impact on health, it's astonishing. When the deeper that you look into it, the more you find out. And I think it's an area of continued research that we're going to see a lot more statistics and a lot more narrative around that in the years to come.
Absolutely. The Gambia is in Africa. It leads to my next question. I'm glad that you're already impacting in some parts of Africa, but how do we drive awareness to the big African countries such as Nigeria, countries such as Kenya, countries such as South Africa? Is your company Travel Without Plastic aiming to break into that region and drive awareness? Have you got any specific plans yet, or is this something that's in the ethos?
Well, this is where we hoped that by having a great relationship together with you and your contacts, it would be something that we would be able to do. So at the moment, the vast majority of our work is in Europe, Caribbean, and Southeast Asia. So that's just where the places that people have invited us to work with them and to help them. So the experience in the Gambia comes from doing other sustainability work there. But obviously, I've always got plastic at the kind of forefront of mind. And so we were able to look at some opportunities of reducing waste. I think that there are some really good practices as well that are going on in different parts of the continent. I think, if you look at the bans or the bag bans that have happened in some of the countries, to the point where tourists know that they can't travel in with a plastic bag, so that the information is getting out there. But I think we need to do a lot more of that. There are some great organisations as well that I had the privilege to know when working with the TUI Foundation, which is a holiday company in the UK. And they were working with, I think it was called Chaco in Zanzibar. And they're a great organisation that's doing a lot of work to raise awareness and to take plastic so that it can be upcycled into other types of products. I also know, and is it a great organisation called Ocean Soul? I don't know if you've heard of them. And they're quite active around the continent. They're collecting in all sorts of used flip-flops and other plastic waste that washes up on beaches, and they're making huge sculptures out of that, which are great for awareness raising. I think a lot of what we need to do is look at how do we bridge the gap between the travellers and the residents of the destination. So tourism has got it plays a really big role in creating waste. I'm doing some research at the moment for a webinar I've got next week in Southeast Asia, and a lot of the dump sites, the illegal dump sites, when you map it, are very, very close to tourism spots. Why that is, I don't really know, but there's overlap there between the local waste infrastructure and being able to plan for the type of tourism activity that is coming into that destination, and is the infrastructure suitable, but also are the people in the destination, are they aware and have they got the capacity to be able to create those infrastructures and to work in that sector, whether it's a formal or informal waste sector. But I think the biggest thing that I find, you can have lots of policies, lots of political statements, lots of brand standards as a hotel, but you've got to have the will to make it happen. You have got to want to make it happen. And for everything that people can say, if they're not doing it, if they're not backing that up with action, and if they're not really focused on it, then it's not going to happen. So what I tend to do is work with the people who have got this almost like undivided attention to getting the job done, to finding the solutions, to making it happen, to overcoming the obstacles. So I think if we go to a new destination or we work with a new business, the first thing that I want everybody to tell me is why they think change is not possible. And I want them to tell me everything, every problem, every reason why they think it won't work. And then together we go through all of those and we think, or we position it and say, right, if right now, today, your bosses or whoever it is in charge, whether it's public or private sector, if they told you we need to change our processes now so that waste reduction is the key thing that's going to happen, what would we change in how we live, how we serve our community, how we serve our environments, how we serve our tourists? What would we change in this ideal world with that at the forefront? And it's amazing how many little solutions you can actually start to find that then feed in to a bigger set of solutions. So I think it's a case of a top down and a bottom up approach, and collaboration is absolutely key to it. I think nobody can do this on their own, no way at all. There's so much crossover, and crossover into other industry as well. As tourism, crosses over into all the authorities behind it, the port authority, the local authorities, the people responsible for environment, fisheries, health, whatever. All of these things, they're kind of crossed by tourism in some way. So that collaboration piece is really, really important. But it just takes somebody to lead and to really mean it and to lead by example. And I think that's, that it would be great to find somebody that was willing to do that and then develop a program together that makes sense in that destination.
Excellent. Jo, you mentioned something. You said bridging the gap. So I'll tell you a bit about the New Nigerian. The New Nigerian was founded on the principle of bridging the gap between diaspora and Nigeria. In 2017, when I started to follow your company on Facebook, it inspired me so much that I started searching for organizations in Nigeria who did similar things. I found a few, but the only way I could collaborate with them really was sending them funds. For example, we formed a collaboration with a company who goes around all the beaches in Lagos, cleaning them up. I'm just going to share my screen very briefly with you so you can have a look at what I'm trying to explain. You can see my screen, can't you?
Yes, you can.
Excellent. Yeah. So this is the New Nigerian. We have the New Nigerian Foundation. And part of what we try to do is concentrate on green energy. So I'll show you some of our campaigns. The TNN Green Campaign, where we contributed finances, as you can see, for beaches in a state in Nigeria. Is Lagos State. Used to be the capital, but it's the commercial capital now, densely populated with a lot of the Atlantic around it. So you can see from pictures, there was a World Ocean Day. Took place on Saturday, the 12th of June. I sent contributions for them to clean the beach. I've also, the organizers of this event, I've also put them in touch with Marcel. In fact, we had a conversation regarding changing all this compost waste management for hotels to make, I think, energy more efficient. The slowdown was finances.
Right.
We weren't really able to, or the company more or less couldn't come up with finances, you know, to continue the program with Marcel. Um, what I'm trying to say is that you inspired that commitment from the new Nigeria to find or try and find solutions to making the environment better in Nigeria. I think there was a time where we were putting a proposal together that we were going to send to the Minister of Environment, if you
Yeah.
remember. We had a
Yeah.
brief conversation about it. I don't think we got round to it. To be honest, I think we should have just done this podcast instead, because I'm going to send, by the time we edit the podcast, I'm going to send it to the ministry, see if the minister can become aware. Nigeria is going through a transition at the moment. We've got elections coming up. I happen to be lucky where I've had a presidential candidate on the platform. I think I have another presidential candidate on the platform on the 24th. I'm going to find out what his environmental policy is, and I'm going to immediately suggest that he sets up a committee while he's campaigning to speak with Travel Without Plastic to see what kind of collaborations can come out of that contact. Knowledge is free, they say. Um, Obviously, everybody is looking for a bit of profit in whatever they do. But if our environment becomes better in Nigeria, if the people start taking, or do people have awareness about the impact of plastic pollution and the solutions we can have, I think is better for the world. So I'm ready to make the podcast free for anybody to listen to. Whoever taps in, taps in. That is one of the aims of the new Nigerian, to extend knowledge from diaspora to Nigeria. On that note,
Fantastic.
yeah, I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak with the audiences in Nigeria with particular reference to, sorry, the audience in Africa with particular reference to Nigeria. What do they need to start to do? How do we prepare their minds? So if a Nigerian was listening to you now, what kind of advice would you give them? Or what commitment would you say, a target commitment they could have to reduce the impact of plastic in Nigeria?
Gosh, having never been to Nigeria, it makes me feel like I'm not sure if I've got a great, am I the right person to suggest what people could do? But I think globally, it's the same principles, and it's maybe to not be overwhelmed by the size of the challenge, whether that's in Nigeria or any other country in Africa or any other country in the world. Don't allow yourself to be so overwhelmed that you don't do anything. So maybe pick one or two things that you think you could do differently, whether that's taking plastic out of your own life, out of your own house, or out of if you work somewhere, if there's something that you can do to take one item of plastic out of that workspace, then that's a great thing, because doing one thing well is better than doing nothing. So I think that's a really good start, and there's absolutely no harm whatsoever in doing one thing at a time, getting it right, feeling great and motivated, than trying to do too much and not achieving anything, and then feeling like we're never going to be able to do this, we can't change, and we get stuck in this rut. So I would say choose something that's within your own circle of influence to do, that's easy for you personally or professionally. That would be my first piece of advice. Secondly, I would suggest that if people can, they really take the time to try and be a bit more informed about those impacts and what the impacts are going to be on them or their children. A lot of people need to find some kind of relevant why am I doing this, And normally we want to get something back ourselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. So if we want to live in a cleaner environment, that could be the main reason why. If we want to have a better future for our children, that could be why. If we want to be able to create a new alternative product to plastic and make money, that could be why. It doesn't matter what the why is, because your why is individual to you. But I think until we get emotionally involved with it, we're less likely to do some of the harder work. And because we've got to be open to kind of changing a little bit how our lives are at the moment, we've got to look at, are we willing to take those extra steps, because they might be a little bit harder sometimes, or a little more inconvenient, but they will be worth it in the long run. So I think if you could do, look at those three things, do one thing that's easy for you professionally or personally, be more informed, read more about it, find out what's going on and the impacts of it, and be really clear on why you want to do something. And that's a really good place to start. Like you say, you've been inspired from things you've read or things you've seen. It sets something off, and there's a chain reaction that comes with that. And by leading by example in that way, there could be 10 other people watching you, and they think, I'm going to do what that person's doing. I could do that. I could stop using plastic bottles or plastic straws, or I could make sure that I, dispose of things that I need to use responsibly so they don't become litter. You don't know how many people are watching you and how many people you could inspire just by doing something small. So whatever it is that resonates for you, then try it. You can't go wrong with trying.
Thank you so much, Jo. It's been an interesting 45 minutes. Could you please, just in case anybody listening, how do they get in touch with Travel Without Plastic? Is there a website they can visit so they can have a bit more knowledge? Where do they go to read about your organization and leave comments on how to collaborate with you?
Yes, so it's very easy. The website is quite literally www.travelwithoutplastic.com. We do still have the Facebook page, and so we're very happy to receive comments and messages on there. Personally, I'm much more active on LinkedIn than Facebook, and Travel Without Plastic has a very good following professionally on LinkedIn, so I probably spend more time on that platform and respond more quickly to messages there. But I can also be reached on email, which is just Jo at travelwithoutplastic.com as well.
Excellent. So, audience, you've heard from Jo. We've had a good 45 minutes talking about not only the impact of plastic on our environment, the impact on our health, what we need to do in curbing the use of plastic, particularly in Nigeria. Heard that you can contact Jo by going on the website. It's www.travelwithoutplastic.com. Have a bit of a read, get aware of your environment. As you can tell, this year has been terrible with the impact on the climate. The heat is unprecedented. We've got fires burning everywhere. Plastic in our oceans, destroying our marine life. That impacts on us as well. Heard what Jo said about the fish we eat having microplastics in them, impacting on our health. So we must do something about our environment. To the Minister of Environment in Nigeria, wherever it may be, if you get to watch this podcast, please reach out to Travel Without Plastic. Bring the awareness in. Jo's organization do webinars, they do seminars, you can invite them in. To the hotels in Nigeria, if you do hear this podcast and you know that you require this kind of service, please reach out to Jo. You already have the address. Not only to make an impact for your organization, but for the country itself. We appreciate you, Joe, very much. We thank you so much for the time you've given us. We know you're a busy lady. We're not going to keep you more than we have already. And here's to collaborating with you. TNN is hoping that we can pull travel without plastic into the Nigerian or African ethos. Eventually, we will, just like you said, we're inspired enough to try it, and we can't go wrong if we keep trying. So we will keep trying, and we intend to collaborate with you. We're really grateful for your
Excellent.
time. And if there's anything else you wish to tell the audience before we end the podcast, here's your chance.
Oh, just to say thank you very much for the opportunity. It's been a long time that we've promised that we would do something like this, and I think everything happens at the right time for the right reasons. So I think now is a really good time to say, right, this is it. We're drawing the line. We're going to do something about this. We mean it. I'm going to play my part, however big or small that is, but it's important no matter how big or small. And I just want to be part of that change. So I hope that's how people feel once they've listened in. And thank you to them for spending their precious time as well to listen to the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, David.
Excellent. I'm going to end the recording now. I'll have a few minutes with you before I let you go, okay?
Excellent.
Thank you, TNN audience, and hope you enjoyed the podcast. Keep tuning in, bring you more quality podcasts. Take care now, audience. Bye for now.